I want to thank you guys for at least thinking about me on this particular subject. I'm very passionate about educating people about the dangers of substance abuse. The first time that I tried a substance was when I was 16. It was in a park in Manalapan, maybe at midnight, and I actually got arrested that exact night. So you would think to yourself, wow, the first time that I tried a substance, I also was arrested for underage drinking this same night. You would think that someone would be like, this might be a rough ride. But that was the first time. That was alcohol. I was doing keg stands in a park at 16 years old with a bunch of my buddies, and I thought it was cool. It was sort of a progression. Once you had your first drink of alcohol, you were curious about the next substance, which would most likely be marijuana. I'll be honest with you. I think any substance is a gateway drug because it's the mind and the body continues to want it. So once you go down that road, you're going to expect to have some consequences that you may not want to deal with. Dependency, addiction, cops, court, fines, lawyers, all stuff that people need to be educated. Life is more about decisions in life, okay? And also I'm going to tap onto that and say, how could you make a good decision intoxicated? Like, let that sink in real quick. And if you know that, then you will stay away from drugs and alcohol because you're doing nothing but dimming your shine. Based off my personality, once I started smoking marijuana, I was smoking like morning, noon, and night because I had an obsessive personality. And at that time, I didn't even know that. It took me many, many years later to have the self-awareness to realize that I can't touch any substance because of who I am. And I had to change from negative behaviors to positive ones. Not really. I came from a middle-class family. I had two older brothers and a younger sister. We had a very, very good household. I had everything that I really wanted, I guess. And it was really just probably boredom and also experimentation. You have to understand that you can't take any substance because if you take one substance, it's going to affect every aspect of your life. It's going to affect when you go to sleep. It's going to affect what you eat. It's going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect your job. It's going to affect your money. And if it does that, right, like you're not going to be able to take your significant other on a date. You want to know why? Because you got to pay tickets. You got to pay fines. Why do you want to go through that bullshit? Life is hard enough on its own. Why are you hindering yourself? I was not really ever really in denial. I knew that I was a very wild kid in my younger days, and I wasn't shying away from that. Eventually, once I was dependent on drugs and alcohol or opiates I sought help. I didn't take the help seriously at first, so I went to multiple rehabs in my 20s before I eventually got it in my 30s. I was 19. My neighbor said that someone around the block's mother had cancer, and that they had access to these little yellow pills called Percocets. And they called them bananas amongst the kids. And we were like, oh wow, let's try one of those. Next thing you know, I'll be honest with you, I fell in love with the feeling, and that was, the beginning of the decline. Because eventually I continued to sort out that particular feeling, and it's just not your baseline. And I want to also say that when you mess with your baseline of how you feel right now, it's hard to ever catch up with it. Downers, uppers, it's like, I feel fantastic now being sober, and I wouldn't mess with that for the world. In the beginning, no, because I was in my 20s, I was already going to clubs and having fun, and I was just showing people in America, what I did. Eventually, after seasons 2 of Jersey Shore, and they started to pay the kid here, that's when it started to get a little bad, because now I had the resources to get anything I wanted. Nobody would say no to me. Doctors wouldn't say no to me. Everybody wanted to give me everything that I wanted. And eventually, all the money and resources and gifts that God had graced me, I was slowly but surely losing, and I had no idea. Probably in my 30s, I realized that this was a serious problem, and I had to do something different. In times before, when I went to rehab, I didn't take it seriously, and I wasn't getting good results. Now I'm 31, 32 years old, And I wanted to make my mom proud. I wanted to excel in my job. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have kids. How could I do that if I'm making bad decisions? So I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to do everything in my power to put all my effort in this recovery and dig myself out of this hole. Because what you need to understand is no one is going to save you but you. Okay? And in order to do that, you need to make good decisions. I tell people all the time, actually people tell me all the time, what's worse than never having your dreams? And I tell them, having your dreams, having the money, the cars, all of your dreams come true, and letting it slip out of your fingers because of your own actions, your own decisions, and substance abuse. And that's what happened to me. I mean, at that time when you're in the grips of addiction, you are physically dependent. You are physically dependent mentally and physically. People don't realize, but it's actually you're more mentally dependent than anything else, because you can be physically detoxed after about a week or so, and still the mind will want that drug for a couple months going forward. So you need to understand that you're going to deal with a lot of pain, and that you put yourself into this, and now you got to get yourself out of it. There are no excuses in recovery. I wish that I had someone come to my school when I was younger and talk to me about this. I mean, I'm sure they did. Maybe I didn't listen, but maybe if I was to listen to or if I was able to talk to my former self, the most important thing that I would tell you is that in order to be your best self and live your best life, you need to make good decisions. You know, you were nauseous, you were tired, you had low energy, you're low motivation. The only thing on your mind is getting out of these withdrawal symptoms, no matter what, okay? And you do not want to be in that situation. It's really an equation, and you need to avoid that. Just like if you decide to drink and drive, the equation that you put yourself in is not a good one, okay? Most likely you're going to get pulled over, you're going to get a DUI, you're going to get your license taken away, and you're going to have to pay these fines, all from that one decision. I am exactly 3 years clean and sober over every substance as of right now. It is one of my finest accomplishments, next to marrying my college sweetheart who is behind the camera. To be honest with you, I still have the obsessive personality. I still do. I'm never going to change that. But what I can change is the behaviors. Now I have all positive behaviors. I'm actually addicted to bettering myself now. And that is a lifelong addiction that I'm happy to share with you guys. On a daily basis, I self-evaluate myself on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis how I can have progress in my life. Mentally, physically, spiritually, personally, and professionally. It's a lot of things to work on. And people are like, well, give me an example. Well, physically, I can go to the gym. Okay? I also can eat healthy. I also can take soda out of my diet. Also, I can practice boundaries in my life, that anyone that has toxic behavior or that is negative, I can take them out of my life. I can also be a good person. I can keep my side of the street clean. And people say, well, what is that? Keeping your side of the street clean is you don't lie, you don't cheat, you don't steal, you don't drink, you don't drug. And because I'm in the room full of cops, guys, I don't even speed. Okay, I can't afford tickets right now. I come to a 4-way stop and I look 8 ways. My life is at an all-time high right now, and I got the blueprint and I'm sharing it with you. Yes, my wife is actually my college sweetheart. So she was with me the whole time during my experimental phase. And I'll be honest with you, she was not having any of it. And that is one of the reasons why I'm clean and sober. I not only wanted to do it for myself, but I wanted to do it for my family and be my best self.
Opioid addiction to me is definitely a disease that affects not only the individual, but everything around them, every person around them, including their community. I think it's something that everyone, not just the individual addicted, needs to be educated in how to prevent it and how to treat it going forward. I've known him for almost more than half my life, which is about 15 years.
15 years, yep.
So it's a long time. His addiction, when he was an active addiction, destroyed a relationship,
yep.
Destroyed any trust, destroyed any self-respect at one point. He really took away any foundation we ever built and had to start over. I personally haven't struggled with addiction myself. I just don't have that personality. I never liked feeling any type of way without being myself. Like he talks about the baseline, I get a little freaked out anytime I don't feel like myself.
Yep.
Like my skin crawls. So even now, like I'll maybe have a glass of wine once every 4 months or something like that, but I don't even like how alcohol made me feel. So I was usually trying to pull him away from it. So my younger brother Christopher passed away in 2013. He was 25 years old. Myself and him and my family grew up in Homedale. We went to Homedale High School. He graduated. He was a football player. And I always say he was smarter than me. He got into a better school than I got into. He went to University of Maryland. And that's where he kind of started really experimenting. And that's what scares me about the youth now, in that they need to have the education before they go away to these big state schools, even Ivy Leagues, that you cannot try drugs, that not even once, because you will just destroy your entire life, your relationships, your family. And he's a walking miracle, and he's lucky to get out alive. But, my little brother didn't have that opportunity. So when my brother passed, Mike and I worked together, and he was going through his active addiction up and down. He was trying to juggle getting clean on his own. He'd be clean for a couple months. Sometimes he had a little bit even longer time periods, and then he would different types of programs and outpatient treatments. But he still had all the money and all the cars, so he still kept, relapsing and relapsing. And after my brother passed, I was destroyed. I wasn't expecting it. I was angry at my brother for, I think, years after he died, until I realized, I can't make up with him, because I just couldn't believe that it had happened. It's almost like when you have a blowout fight. You think you're going to go make up with them, and then that never happens. So it's just part of the grieving process. But while he was going through his addiction, I just remember thinking in my head, I'm not going to give up on him, because I had a lot of guilt that by not taking my brother in, or not, supporting him, or always being mad at him for the decisions he made, that I gave up on. I wish he had the opportunity to see Mike where he is today, because he definitely looked up to Mike, especially in the last year of his life, because that was the year we got back together. And he always looked up to Mike, and I think if he had seen Mike where he is now, he would have found the strength to just keep going one day at a time. Because when you grow up in a nice town like Homedale, and then you go to rehab, and then your parents won't take you back, and you're living in an Oxford house or a recovery home, he thinks his life is destroyed, his life is ruined. He didn't graduate college, he didn't do all these things, and he was only 25. He could have accomplished anything he wanted. So all he needed was to see an example of someone who could turn it around. So Christopher was 25 when he passed. I would say he battled with it for about maybe 3 years.
4 years probably, yeah.
Not many years.
Experimenting,
the grand scheme of life. But it was during those college years. It was when he had left, the state, and he was living away, and he was under new people and impressions, and he was always the life of the party, and the comedian, and the class clown, and he was very smart at the same time. So, and that's the thing about a lot of addicts. They're very smart. They're so smart.
Imagine what you can do if you apply yourself.
Especially the longer you're using, because you're just manipulating every person, every business contact, every relationship, every family member, every friend to get to your high. And if you put that into any industry, you would be so successful.
I would have to tell them that, be careful for what you choose in life, because if you decide to go down that road of drugs and alcohol, you're going to deal with some consequences that you may or may not be able to recover from. And I would tell them, what's the hashtag, honey?
Not even once. Opioids will destroy your family, yourself, your future.
Drugs and alcohol.
All drugs and alcohol, I think, personally, will do that. But most importantly, opioids, it's just a not even once deal. You can't risk it, because you'd be risking your life, your family, and everything that you could dream of.